stage, commit. Now I'll go to my beta branch, and you see that the changes I've done are not there because they were done in the other branch. And here I will say, yes, this is the beta branch. And I will commit this change in the beta branch that is on the same line. So here in the working copy, stage, conflict demo. And now I'll go to my master and I will merge the beta branch inside my current branch. And normally, I hope, I will have a conflict being raised here. So yes, so you now have merge conflicts in your working copy that need to be resolved before continuing. You can do this by selecting the conflicted files and using the option Resolve Conflicts menu. So what I'm doing when this occurs, so I'm here in the master, and you have here exactly how the conflicts are displayed, are flagged. You have a tag which is add with kind of arrows on the left, minus smaller than, and you have the opposite, greater than, and the name of the branch. So you have add is the current master, okay, and beta is the one I want to merge in, and there's a conflict between the two, one that tells that it is the beta branch, and the other tells that it is not the beta branch. So the beta here says that it is, and this one says it's not the beta branch. So which one should win? I have to decide if one is winning or how to make the two work together, because two changes can be two different changes that I want to keep. So I have to change my code to make it in one piece and without having these code here. So what I'll do for now, I will just change it and say here, this is the master. And I will save it. And because I remove every conflict tags that I add, now I will be able in my working copy here to push these changes, and source tree gave me here a commit message automatically that says there were conflict in this and I fixed the conflicts here. You see the change was that I changed it to this here. I commit this change here, and now my conflict has been resolved and I have the final version in master, which is what I decided to keep in the conflict. It's something, the first time it occurs, you panic. You say, everything will be broken. But you breathe and you look at the changes, and of course you recognize the changes that you've done in these two branches, and you say, oh yes, that's true. These changes were done in the same section. So I have to fix it. It's usually easy to fix.
Yeah, so let me add just a question here. Whatever. It seems, I get what you did, right? And how it came up. What seems odd to me was when you deleted both, I forget what it was, head and beta. I would have thought you would have left one of those names and one would have been the one that would have been absorbed or used, but you actually ended up.
No, you keep what you want to keep.
Well, exactly. That's a better way to state it. You don't keep necessarily either one. You just have to make a decision of what you want there. Okay.
Here I just did Control Z here just to revert to what it was before I fixed the change. So you don't need to, you must not keep these tags, which is beginning. Sometimes the change will be in a bunch of 12 lines. Okay, just only one line. It can be in a section of your code that you have conflicting changes. And there's some magic in Git that will detect these changes and detect that there's a conflict. And I never had a conflict being not correctly flagged and resolved.
And if you
and to me, there's some magic behind that, but I believe Git.
And if you had added, you realized 10 lines should have been there, it still would have, because it looks at what's after it, it knows this was before it, this was after it. This
Yeah.
is we're
Yeah.
adding 10 lines. Okay.
Yeah. And if I was doing it with different folders for a different version, the old way that I was doing it before, it would be a nightmare because this conflict, it would not be a nightmare. I would just not know that there was a conflict because I took something that I thought was the good one and overwritten the other one, and then I lost something that I should have kept. Because the file copy does not have the intelligence to detect that there's something that should not be overwritten, but Git has this capacity to detect these conflicts.
Which I think that's a good thing to point out, is a conflict isn't like, hey, there's two things here that the program's not going to work, right? It has nothing to do with that.
No,
it's that
no.
two things were edited
Yeah.
differently, and we don't know which one
yeah, and here it's two changes by me, I suppose, and I have no experience with that, but if I was working with other team members, that changes from other team members could conflict with my own change. So one of us, I don't know how it happens in this situation, would have to fix, maybe the project leader would have to fix the conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a project. Yeah, you have a project manager who is keeping track of all the changes, and he's the one that knows and decides at the end which changes are going to be merged and which ones won't. And usually what they do is that if a change has a conflict, they will not push it to the branch. They tell you, well, you have to rewrite that, and then you come back with a working patch.
Yeah, they will have the two programmers to work together maybe to fix it. Yeah. So that's pretty what I wanted to show you. Is there something else you would like to see, or?
Does anyone want to jump in on the chat or ask a question now here? Is there anything that?
I did want to just add something, and this is maybe like a lot of things, but you know, when you're working with origins, right? You were talking about remotes. One of the interesting things is that GitHub allows you to fork projects. So I go to his GitHub page and I see a project that I like, and I can actually fork it. And one of the interesting things is that you can actually push to different remote branches. So I can think of my local copy, and then the remote branch on John's page, and my remote branch on my page, and I can push to both at the same time and everything like that. So basically, this whole thing with GitHub, what it does is that it allows you to use like hundreds of coders work on the same project and all have exactly the same file at the same time. That's what it is for. Like,
okay, the fork button. Okay, it's here, the fork button.
Yeah, you can actually fork that project in your profile.
Yeah, and if someone fork my code and later I change my code, he will be able to merge my changes to his own version.
Right. Yes. Yeah. If he adds you see the address that you copied at the beginning, he would add it as a remote on his branch, like on his GitHub. He would add it as a remote, and you see that the source tree created one for you that it is called origin, right? You can create as many remotes as you want. So instead of only having origin, I can add your link and the link of another person, and I can push to everybody at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the remotes are for.
Yeah, what you can also do on GitHub is to subscribe to others' repositories.
Right.
And for example, I receive notification when there are changes done in the AutoHotkey code. So they're working on AutoHotkey version 2. So I can receive, or even in the current release when they do bug fixes or interim release. So you can also subscribe to these others' repositories. I don't remember exactly where, maybe here. Which AutoHotkey here, and in some way, I don't remember how, I subscribed to change it.
Right, you forked it. You created a fork for it.
Okay, so that's not what make me receive the alerts.
Right, no, but
I forked it, but I never used it. I forked it at some point, I never used it.
Right, so
maybe if I go in the repository, where should I search here? Is it searching only? No, here probably.
It is in your, on the top left.
AutoHotkey, yes. So these are mines.
Yeah, but those are not.
I don't want mine. I want
Only AutoHotkey.
okay. So Lexicos AutoHotkey L.
Right.
So that one I'm subscribed to it and receive alerts. So I know often I don't understand because it's coded in C and I don't develop in C, but I understand what they're doing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is where, Jean, even I can get this one. If you actually, in Isaiah's, I think that's where you're going. If you created your own fork, you could then say, go get the changes, and it's going to pull it in. You can see, it'll identify what was changed, right?
Right.
So, and that's the beauty of it, right? Of like, because you mentioned earlier, Jean, like, I don't know what was changed. How do I know it was changed, right? And
exactly. So basically, when you fork that particular repository, you can set it as a remote. Every time there are changes, you can fetch the changes or pull them, right, to your local one, and you can see all the changes. And you can also make changes and try to push it. And if he sees the change and he allows it, he merges into his main branch or whatever.
Okay.
So that's how people actually can contribute to code. I just go to his webpage, his GitHub, I download it, I fix a bug, and then I send the patch and I tell him, look, I just sent this patch that fixes this particular thing that happened to me. You don't have to spend your time on it. I just fix it for you. You just have to accept it. And he just gets a notification, he accepts it and merges it into his own code. But I did the job, you see?
It happens only once in the 5 years I'm working on Quick Access Pop-Up that someone contributed something. And I was so unsure of what I had to do that I took the code and put it myself in my own code. just to make
copied it. Right.
Yeah, because when you can mess a repository in some way. There are things that I don't know what it is, and
yeah, you don't want to mess it.
Don't want to. Here I can say things like create patch.
A patch, exactly.
And kind of change the head. Where maybe I had to be
right.
Make a new ad, or there's a I don't understand the vocabulary there, so I don't need to use it, fortunately, so it's not a problem.
Yeah,
but there are things here. Checkout, I don't know exactly what it does. And
checkout is to change to that particular branch, that's all.
Okay, and what I wanted to do at some point is say, okay, I've done this last change here, and I would like just to revert to the previous version here. And I never completed this operation before, so it's something
checkout, that's what you would like to do, right? So if you do a checkout, you will switch to that particular branch in time, and then you will be able to see the file in there, right?
But the same thing, okay, checkout is the same thing as double click.
Exactly.
As a
exactly
double click.
Thing.
Okay. Right. So double clicking here on beta is check
the
out
same
of,
as checking
this
out
line.
the branch in beta.
Okay.
Right.
So I could check out this line here. It would take me to this
version.
At that time.
Right.
Checking out will, okay, that's where I got confused. Checking out this commit will create a detach head. What is a head and what is a detach head? I don't think it's good for help to have the head detached, so I prefer not to do that. I stop there.
No. So basically what it does is the following. So what happens is that as you're going back in time, right? Any changes, so like any changes that you do during that time is gonna merge out of the main branch. So for example, what it does is that it breaks everything that is forward. So just imagine that you're going back on time, right? There's a lot of things. Oh, okay. Think about it this way. Have you ever, when you're working on Notepad++, and you have worked for a little while, and then you try to do Control-Z several times, right? You do Control-Z and go back, Control-Z, go back, Control-Z. If you make a change, you lose everything that was after that, right?
Forward, yeah.
You notice that?
You lose the control, yeah.
So what it is telling you is that when you're doing that, when you check out something that is backwards and you do any changes, what is going to happen is that it is going to create a branch, a completely different branch of the original, and then you would have to try to merge it. And that is always, most of the time, is going to result in a conflict. And that's why it is warning you, because what is going to happen is that all the changes that you have in the master branch are going to be lost technically. And then when you want to merge the change that you did is going to have a lot of conflicts. Okay. That's what is going on. And you will have to know exactly what you're doing.
So because it's a demo repository, I will try it and we'll see what will happen. So I click on this and it became the head. Does it mean that all this is now out of the head?
All of that is, exactly. So all the new changes that you had on master are gone. You just have these 3 lines that you had at that time. Now, if you make any changes, just add one line now. So now, if you now try to merge that into the master branch, it should have a conflict because it is in a different space. And actually, I'm not sure if you're seeing like this little tree that you have in there of lines. It makes a graph in which you see that change that you did, it jumps everything. You see, it jumps all the dots on the right, and it's totally at the top. Can you see that?
Okay, so I would have to merge this to that if I commit. Let's say that I commit this change with one line.
The only thing is that it is going to be a nightmare to commit in some cases because there are 2 different branches now. They diverged, and you kind of lost information in the process. And in some cases, that is a complete nightmare to merge those things.
Yeah, so I'll try to merge just for fun. I'll see what happened here.
In this case, as the change did not conflict with anything, it kind of went very easily. But basically, they actually warned you because that is a very nightmarish thing to do, actually. That is something that you shouldn't do very often.
I've done that at one point, and it was a nightmare, and I resolved it by creating the prod branch instead of the master branch, and the prod branch was clean. Okay, from now on, I work with the prod branch instead of master. That's when I changed that.
Let me ask a question here, because I think there is one benefit. Right, if I'm understanding it correctly. You know your example earlier with using, was it Paint Shop and doing undos, right? And revert back.
Like the undos. Right.
So you go back to 5 versions earlier. You say, okay, I'm gonna start here. However, the difference here is we can actually still go jump ahead 3 steps and look at what was done because you still have them, right? You can see them.
In Git, you keep all that, right?
Well, but you have to manually say, hey, you know what? This was okay. Let me bring this in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, the Git is just a glorified undo button.
Yeah. Okay.
Because in the normal process of undo, you go back 5 and you can go forward 5. But if you go back 5 and you make a change, you lose the 5 that you had on the front. But with Git, you do not lose them. They stay there. You can actually check them out. You can actually go back to them, merge them, do whatever you want. You don't lose the changes. That's what's going
on. Just a note for those who never use that, the kind of thing we are talking here are never happen unless something bad happen. But we are in more advanced situation here. But I would just ask a question to Isaiah here about this one here that was the master before. Right. I have these options here when I right click on this this commit. And I have rebase children or reset current branch to this commit, or so is there something here that would help me to make it back the current master?
Yes, it is exactly. And actually, I'm actually surprised of this particular tool because what happens is that Git, I usually use it on the command line, and because most of the tools do not have those options, the rebase. What it does is that it changes, like you see that head that is totally at the top in there.
Yeah.
Like the first, that one, that it is not actually part of the master anymore. I could actually try to rebase it and kind of like join it into my master branch again. Now, all of those processes like to rebase something and to actually kind of like squash a lot of commits together, all of those things, they are processes that are very complicated. You have to understand what you're doing, but yeah, you can do it in here. Yeah. I see that you can.
I could continue trying that in this demo, but what I would like to show to to users is that here, all the lines that we have here, and sometimes there are many concurrent simultaneous branches that I'm working on, they all finish to be merged into my beta or into my production branch. And you know, here sometimes it becomes quite busy here. So I'm doing that with folders or version file names, I would be lost here. I was even lost even with GitHub. So
now look at this. I want to touch on something. Just go up a little bit. Just go up a little bit, please.
Yeah.
Just stay there on the red line. On the red line. So go down a little bit. Just go down a little bit there. There
this one here, so the origin. Yeah.
So you have here that at this point you have the release 10.5. Yeah. Now, we started working on a bug fix that is the red line. You see it there, right?
This one here, the one on the right.
That one. So that one does not share any code with the left ones, like the orange one, the green one, the blue one. They don't share any code. But at the end, you actually merged it into the main file, right?
So at this point here, they are all merged together, except
at the end, what you're doing is that those little changes, you then at the end just merge them into the main one, and the user just sees the end, you know, like everything merged together.
Yeah, and there are two exceptions. The yellow and the green one were not merged, and so they continue here.
Right.
And they will be merged only here in the beta release, or finally they will be merged here because they were included here, and finally they got into production.
Exactly.
Here. So, but you decide what you're ready to put inside your beta or inside your master.
But you can work on them at the same time. Actually, you can work on different things at the same time. But you don't lose your changes, and that is the beauty of Git and GitHub, is that all your control Z's, all your changes, they are not lost. He can actually go to any one of those branches, and he will see the file, how it looks at that particular moment. And that's you can go forward, backward, it doesn't matter how it works. It doesn't matter how you do it. You always see everything, like the whole history of that file.
May 2015, that was the first import of a code into folders pop-up that became quick access pop-up later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things. It's a lot of things.
Yeah. And it never broke except when I had to rename my master to prod because something occurred. But unless that, it's been always.
Jean, can you go down near the bottom?
Yep.
I get all the different branches, but like here, there's a bunch of, you know,
changes.
Well, but that's the thing is there's no undo, so what are the changes? Because there's no different paths. There's just the one thing.
Yeah, but these are the changes here. You can see all the changes in this file here.
So they help me understand that. How is that different than one when there's a different path?
Okay, yeah. When do they diverge? That's what happens. Right, so that's what happens. So he's just incrementally adding new how do I say, changes, but he didn't create branches for them.
Okay, thank you.
Doing it in the same branch,
okay,
right?
Yeah, I was working for myself only at that time, and at some point I wanted to make a beta release for beta testers.
So basically, you don't even need to create branches if you don't need to.
It just
you can
maybe
just
because
simply do this. That's okay.
And I was a new user of Git, so I didn't know necessarily how to use it and create branch. And at some point I say, oh, if I could create a branch. So I don't know when it happened. It took me 6 months maybe to discover that. I discovered that on April 2016, where I started creating new branches. But all before, I think it was only my internal work. Between quick folders pop-up that was version 5 and quick access pop-up that started at version 7, there was version 6 that was just for me, and that's where I did all the rewrite of folders pop-up into quick access pop-up, and I released version 7 at some point. So that's here when version 7 started to be ready.
Right. So that's so basically you can use Git as just what we were talking about, the Control Z that you can go back and forward. But as soon as you create a new branch, you can work on both sides at the same time. And so long as they don't have conflicts, you can then merge them again. And that's what he's doing. Like he opens up a branch for a specific topic, which is what we call in GitHub and Git topical branches. So he's gonna work on a specific topic. So I'm gonna work now on the window that fetches the files. So I make a branch just for that. And I can continue on my main branch doing changes if I want, but I can also work on this other branch that has nothing to do with the master. And then at the end, I try to merge them. That's all there is to it. And then I don't lose changes in either or. So I can switch to either or of the versions at any point.
Cool.
Other questions?
Can you go back up where you have, well, I guess like here you have, let's say at least more than one branch, right? Concurrently. Yeah. And you're working on some changes in one. Can you apply those changes to, how do you apply changes to more than one branch at a time?
You merge. So I go in more recent. So let's say that here, this one, I'm ready to put it in the other branch.
Oh, okay.
I will go to my production branch, where I am currently. And this is the one that is called ready icon file. So that's this branch here. I will right click and merge. That's how one line will be merged into another line. That's what occurred here and here and here.
And then what it does is that it
these one are not ready. Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
It wasn't the way I was thinking about it, but I get that's why they do it that way. Because that is truly what you are doing. You're saying these changes are the same in all these things. So that is what you would do, is you'd merge that. I get it. Okay.
Right. So you're working on the same file. The only thing is that you're working on different topics of the same file, and hopefully you're not contradicting lines in that file.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And that's where, earlier I wasn't quite sure how, overall when you're doing this by yourself, how helpful it is. And I did also want to point out, Jean, like you're showing all the stuff and everything that at least you were showing, it looked like it was also under Dropbox too, which was, ironic to me. But, how, when I'm working by myself, how helpful is this? But I kind of get it now of, as I'm fixing different things, I don't have one quote unquote, one version of the file. I have those edits to that piece of code I did, and I can better maintain and jump around. And like you said, kind of undo separate things differently and track what's going on instead of just having a linear, process.
Yeah, because for example, and this is where it works best. Just imagine that you have version 1, right? You have been doing some changes. You are now on version 2. But there was a bug. When you were doing the changes, there was one of the changes that you did in version 1.5 actually introduced a bug, right? Now, if you want to fix that, the best thing to do is just go to that version and fix it, because that's when it was introduced. But if you're in only one branch, what is going to happen is that you're going to lose all the changes that you had after that. So what you do is that you go to that version, you create a new branch, you work on the fix, and then you merge it into the main file without losing your changes. That's what is going on.
Cool. Well, that was easy.
It would be very easy to understand, but you know what, when you actually work on it and you try it after a few times, then you see the beauty of it, and then you cannot live without it.
And there are small satisfaction early that will encourage you to continue to, because there's a learning curve, but there's also great benefits using it.
Yeah, of course.
Like I said, for me, once I stopped thinking about those things as files and really changes, just changes in just this line. And if I remember right, that was in the Python meetup, we talked about it, it looked, at least that's what we were talking about. It looked line by line, and then we examined that line, and the things before and after were, it would know where that was. But that's what it was keeping track of. Did this line change, if I remember correctly?
Right.
Yeah, that's
There are other tools, for example, Subversion, that I work with people using this tool to keep track of version. I don't know if what it does more or less than Git, but there are other tools also, but Git is, I think, the most used one.
Jackie, you've been a little silent. I'm just curious. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I just turned off the mic, but yeah, I'm not sure really how to feel about it because I'm putting a lot of it into my own use case.
Yeah.
And my main project is one that I've always kept for 3 years, 4 years now. One version, one edit, so to speak. And I have never used GitHub. And I have kind of a hard time of seeing GitHub really making that easier, because currently I'm working in Studio and
Jackie, let me ask you this, because sorry to interrupt you, but if I remember correctly, you for your tool, do you have a beta version that you have some testers with, or no? I don't remember.
No.
Oh, okay, because that was where I was like, I could see how when you have a beta version and a master one, and you have different people, and you want to push it to one first and then to the other, then I'm like, oh, I could see how that it helps you kind of keep that separate and not just do like you or I would normally do of just, well, we have different files, right, and just keep track of the stuff separately. Okay.
Yeah, I totally get a lot of the ideas behind what this can do, but in my own case, with one file that has all of my code, so to speak, there are includes and stuff, but within reason, I have a function that needs to be edited because of a bug. I'll edit it and I'll keep track of that and I'll keep working on that. I will not be switching to another part of the code to work on something that has a higher priority, because then I would have something midway edited that still needs to be fixed. So it truly does depend on the scope of what you're doing.
I do have a question for you, Jackie. So for example, imagine that you worked in a specific function, right? You just did it. Now you continue working, and later on, you find out that the way that you are using that function is causing a problem with the new code that you have right now. Now, what would you do? Would you just edit that same file and just go back and work on the function and that's it? Or what would you do? Would you make a copy of the file and try to work it that way? Because what you
no, I have one version, one file. I don't have some extra file somewhere with test code in it. I have one file, one version.
If you find out a bug, how would you work with the bug without affecting the main file? I mean,
I have a version that's released. That's a separate file. New version, new file, and I work on that file until it works.
Exactly. So you have the public version and the local version that you work on, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's you're doing exactly the same as having a master branch and a beta branch. The only thing is that you don't keep more branches. That's what you're saying. Like, I just have the public one and the local one. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one benefit, and I don't say that to push the use of GitHub, but what I also like, putting aside all the branches thing, is the fact that every end of day or end of hour or at some point I commit my changes, and before committing them, I can review them and say, oh, I forgot some debugging code that I put here. Should not be there, removed, because I review my code. So maybe you can do it yourself by looking at your file or using a comparison tool, because Notepad++ will do that, or your editor will do that. But it's something that could be done without Git. But the fact that it is included in the process to review your code, to me, is something that improves the quality of what I'm doing.
The thing I'd add on to that, Jean, is if you're like me and you're not very good at annotating your code while you're working, perhaps in that stage when you're looking at your changes, you'll realize, oh, hey, I should add a comment here, right? Because use that as your thought process of like, oh, every time I do this, I need to make a note of like what actually happened.
Now,
Yeah.
I do also want to point out, Git and GitHub are specifically designed for teams. That's the goal. It is for groups of people contributing code at the same time, and Git actually keeps tracks of all the changes and so on. When you're a lone developer, it is not like needed. You don't need to use it. It does have some benefit, but really the beauty of Git is actually in contributing code. It is not for lone developers. You don't need it. Actually, it's how Jackie says it.
If you don't have branches, if you don't need to have different branches evolving separately, as the Jackie, the way he does, he has one branch and one one candidate to be the next version. In fact, then it's not required. But
it's not like required or something. Yeah. But the thing is that as John pointed out, Git is the tool that is mainly used right now. The one that was before it was Subversion. Actually, Subversion is the older software that was used. Git superseded it, but the point of Git was that of contributing code between many developers. That's what it is all about.
Very cool. Dale was asking how you set up a local repository and what tools are you using? That one tool you're using, John,
source tree.
Source tree? Okay.
Yeah. Here you can create a new repository, but as I said, and you would use one of these buttons, the create button here, but I have more success creating the repository on GitHub and then cloning it to my local.
Are you sharing your screen? Were you pointing at something?
Oh, I stopped sharing, excuse me.
Sure. I was doing something the other day and like 20 minutes later, the person said, are you sharing? I'm like,
yeah. So here I'm creating a new tab here, and here I could create a new repository,
okay,
entering the path and all this. And at some point I could push it or push it, yes, to a remote repository on GitHub or Bitbucket. But it's just not the way I do it. I do it the other way. I start from GitHub. Yeah.
Maybe if people are interested, and chime in the chat if you'd want to participate in this. What might be a fun thing to do, and I'm not saying we do it now because we've been on for our 2 hours, but maybe we could have another time where we get together, like let's say 5 to 6 of us, and let's create a repository, and we'll all connect to it, use it as our, what were they called, the source, whatever they're called, but actually go through working with it as a team. I'll go make an update, someone else can make an update, and we can literally look at how it flows and
what's
how,
happening.
Yeah, because I think that would have helped me grasp it faster of seeing, it's one of those things when you watch things change, it's just easier to, when different people are doing them to see it. Anyway.
Yeah. And actually, I do want to answer one of the questions that I saw in the chat, that it says like, isn't it time consuming to manage all the changes? Well, you know what? It would be more time consuming if you don't have a tool that helps you. That's what happens. So the tool,
less time.
Yeah. So basically the tool allows you to really quickly manage all the changes. If you do it manually, it's going to be worse. But on the other hand, as Joe just pointed out, if we are five people working on one file, just imagine this. So all of us are working on quick pop-up, right? Quick access pop-up. If Joe, me, Jackie, and John are working on that one file, we cannot be modifying the same file at the same time. So each of us needs a copy of that file, right? I will make my changes in one branch that is called, well, fixing the window. John is going to be in his branch saying fixing this other bug. Jackie is in his branch. And then at the end, I just push my changes, and Jackie pushes his changes, and John pushes his changes, and then Joe can see the whole file with all the changes in it.
And
That's
nothing is
what it's
overwritten. And if there are conflicts, they will be raised by the merge.
by the program. That's what it's all about.
You just lost all credibility, Isaias, when you had me being the one that actually.
That's what it broke. Right.
Yeah, that's a great point, though. Of if we're all, and that's where, you know, honestly, in Dropbox, I run into it a lot where more than one person's in a file, and suddenly you get these conflicted files, right? And it sucks.
Yeah, but Dropbox would not tell you which lines have
where it changes. It just tells you that there's a conflict. You have to figure out
where.
I agree, right? I love all this. The one thing I do want to mention to people, though, is, again, if you're working on your own in Dropbox, if something goes haywire, you can log into the browser version and look at a version history of your file with timestamps going back, you know, quite a ways. Yeah. And you can see them. Now, it doesn't show you comparisons and stuff, right? I'm just saying, like, a lot of people don't know this is available, right? It is great that you can actually see, you know, the file at different stages and times. Just FYI.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jean, for putting that all together.
I'll send you the deck so you can share it with your notes.
Awesome. Jackie, do you have any?
Right. No, but I don't have any more. I'm still at the same place as I was earlier. I felt it was really great to get a good overview of this, and I now have a better understanding of.
You know better why you will not use it?
Yeah, that's one way to say it. I'd say the time-consuming concern that others put up would be the same for me because of my use case, with me being myself and actually having to commit all of my changes, where today all I do is actually click save, and that's the thing I do. And sure enough, going in, checking everything, and so maybe committing them or maybe not, or committing with far too wide periods. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I would get it done.
That's actually a good note. The reason why every time whenever you commit, you have to put kind of like a message, is that it is supposed to say exactly what you changed.
Yes, and again, not to push, but just to show that there's a search tool in that here. Here, there's a search tab. And if I change something that relate to ICO, and I want to search in the commit messages or in the file change.
Yes,
so if I search in the file change, I have all the commits where the ICO was present somewhere in these green or red lines.
You're not sharing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I go back to, so normally we are here, but there's a search tab here on the bottom where you can search a keyword. And on the right side here, you say if you want to search this word in the commit messages or in the code itself, in the file changes. So in which file did I change this variable? At what time did I change that thing? Maybe it was 6 months ago. And I would type the name of the variable here, and it will tell me every occurrence where this particular variable was in the changes here, in the red line that were removed or the green line that were added. So it's also something that is very, very good when you have a long history and you have to go back and search where something happened.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask Jackie. So for example, in this case, so you have only one file, you have been going in the same order, but if there's one variable that you just noticed, okay, there's a bug in one variable, you would have to know, okay, you can in that file search for that variable and see how many times that variable is in there. But how about in all the other files, and why you change it? Because it can happen that 6 months from now, you don't know why you did that change. And then later on, you change it back to the original. And then you say, oh my God, now I remember why I changed it, right? But when you have these commits with a specific message that tells you exactly what you did, like in this version, I just added the function, this thing. in this version, I just changed this because of this error. When you search on your commits and you see why you put that in there, you say, oh, well, I cannot change that variable because I put it that way because of this issue that I had that time. Now, 2 years later, I know why I did it. You know, like I always have kind of like a history in there. Like I know exactly why I changed everything.
Here's a weak commit message, work in progress.
You don't know what happened there.
Too many things to write, or not enough time to write it now, but I need to push it. I need to commit it, but it's not a good example. But here you have an example. Here it's the name of a control in a GUI, a drop-down control. So I know here that I created that in June, and that I updated that. I changed the code around this variable these times.
Yeah, so you can. Yeah, again, this is for teams. This is for teams to know where the bug was introduced when you have a very big software, like a very big program that many people are working on it, and something broke, and now we have to figure out what happened. Well, if you do not have version control, well, that's not going to happen. You're not going to know what happened.
No, and that is kind of the difference, because when you say, oh, I have this commit that tells me and stuff like that, I'm the one who's done it, and I'm pretty lucky to have quite a good memory. So
good for you.
Yeah, it's good for me within this code, but it's not like a superpower. So of course I could end up somewhere where I would have forgotten why I moved something 2 years ago. That's not unlikely, sure. But to me, then having committed that small change, I would not think I would actually do that. I would end up doing bigger things. I do like the ideas of branches, and I might find them to be a good idea each time you change something like the functionality, or if you add something new, like a new function or whatever you might do. All those things, sure, they do make sense when it comes to that. But to me, the issue for me is seeing, here in this case, source tree, and all the times you need to go back and forth to change and to submit and all that stuff. To me, I would love to just have it be something that happened within the editor itself.
Actually, just to give you a context on this particular case, as it is a demo, you see that he was switching a lot. But basically, on the morning, I start up my computer, I start working on the file. When I'm gonna go for a break or whatever, or I just finish coding, I make my commit, and that's it. So I just do it once. You don't have to do it like all the time. It's just like, and as he was showing, you can create different commits with chunks of things. So if you today worked on 3 different things, you create 3 different commits. You just, at the end of the day, you say, well, okay, I'm gonna commit this. You select what you're gonna commit and say, well, this one was about this function, this one was a bug fix, and this one was something else. Commit, that's it. And then next day, I just open my editor and continue coding. The thing with Git is that you don't have to be doing it like all the time. It's just at the end, you know, like once, whenever you finish, actually. That's how.
Yeah, and that's probably my issue, right? I would save it and leave it, right?
Exactly. You just save it.
It's too much touch and go for my normal schedule. I would so often end up committing for the last 14 days or something, which of course could work, but then I would be sitting there and doing commits for the first hour of me sitting down, or whatever it might be. And that's just why I'm saying,
you don't have to commit every changes, but you have to commit regularly to avoid having this. Yeah.
I do love all of the things that it gives you, but I'm just seeing a few small bumps for me to do it. It's not like
Jackie, that's the point, right? Your use case, which is exactly, and I still am, right? It's for the stuff I do day to day, this is too much. This is getting, you know, the Maserati when my Toyota Echo will work just fine, right? It's just not needed that extra steps. But man, if you're working on a team, and especially that team is actually working on the same file, you know, in files, like, wow, suddenly that becomes really valuable.
Yeah, it becomes powerful there, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Unless I think we're good. Did anyone, I just want to make sure we asked, did anyone have any things that they were hoping to get help on? Now, we're kind of out of time, but I could stick around for a while or something if I have to. Going, gone. No. Well, thanks again, Jean. Isaiah's, Jackie, and Geek Dude, chat, and everyone. A lot of fun. 50th webinar done. Cross off that thing on our list.
There you go. Take care, man.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John, and see you later, Jackie.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye, everybody.